Welcome to another preview here on Giant Bomb. I am very jealous because my understanding is you guys got to go play Zelda. Well, I say you guys. One of you got to go play Zelda.
Well, I got to hold the controller. I got to play it. I got to experience Tears of the Kingdom. It was very explicitly said that Jeff Bakalar was not allowed to touch any controllers. I'm a mighty strong man. I know many martial arts, and I made sure that every time he grabbed for it, I made sure he was unable to.
Yeah. You went in there as an esports champ. You brought your coach along with you, Jeff Bakalar, who just moral support and giving you strats, right?
Exactly.
I mean, he held the phone. He shot some over the shoulder stuff. I mean, he can handle that.
When I wasn't recording, I was instructed to sit on my hands as well, which was, I thought, a little much. But look, I get it. Big game coming out.
Did they have
Stacey's worked on a lot of TV shows. He knows how to frame a shot a little bit. She's taught him a thing or two. So he was capable for the low lift stuff we brought him for. So yes.
Did they have the switch chained to women like they've had in the past, or
it was 40 different women, and there was a chain going to each one of them, so no one of them could steal it and get on a plane or anything.
That's just good best practices for security these days. That's what that is. Okay, so I think what we're going to do here is we're going to talk it out. I have some questions. I think the best way is they sent over some B-roll. Why don't we bring that up? Let's take a look at it, and we'll just start riffing on that while I ask you guys questions. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
All right.
There's a lot to talk about with this game.
We'll get that up. I guess my first question is, as the camera here is panning around, looks up to a sky island. Did you get to spend any time on the map enough to tell if it's the same exact map as last time?
Let me touch on that, but first, while we're seeing this video, I want to point out the way they kind of framed this longer gameplay section here. Is they basically said, here is this chain of islands, and they had already placed a few beacons, and they're basically try to get all the way up here and go to this island and do it your own way. There's numerous different ways. We've seen people do different ways. So that was kind of the basis of this, was hey, figure out your own way up there, which we'll get to in a second. But to answer your question, that was a big question of mine, was whether, it is the same map down below. And I did ask that, and I got kind of a non-answer. I had a feeling, they can't really talk about that fully. I get the sense it's probably a similar map, the basic overworld down below, I'm assuming, is similar to Breath of the Wild. Our stuff was up in the sky during the demo. Can't confirm that or anything, but I feel it's going to be a similar map down below.
Well, okay, so then you got to the sky stuff. The sky stuff is one of the big, these sky islands, one of the big new things. Did that feel new? Did that feel I am exploring something that feels fresh?
Yeah, it felt substantial because, they kind of did the sky stuff before with, Skyward Sword. A ton of it was up there. It was Wind Waker in the sky where you're flying around in this dumbass bird and, going to these different little planetoids. But those were more kind of little almost like Mario Galaxy type tiny little planets or planetoids. This did feel more substantial. These were larger land masses with waterfalls and puzzles and it wouldn't surprise me if there were full dungeons up there. It does not feel like sparse little rocks in the sky. It felt like larger areas.
There was stuff to do. You weren't, it was not a short sort of detour, right? We spent a good amount of time figuring out a little puzzle up there. I think there was an interesting sort of other mechanics that you have to worry about when you're up there too, which I thought was pretty cool. So
yeah. By the way, what you just saw is really cool. So you're going up here, all these bad guys are coming down. That spiky ball comes down, and then you can use your recall ability to make it go back up and hit all those enemies. And
that's
as you can see,
the rewind, right? That's the rewind.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So objects in motion, you can rewind, but also you can fuse things to your shield, like this Link did. This is not our footage. This is the official B-roll. But he attached that to his shield. He probably attached that to his sword. Around this area, I fused a exploding barrel to my shield, and then when bokoblins hit it, they exploded, which was awesome. I attached a minecart to my sword, and so I'm just swinging around a minecart sword.
Yeah, that looked real dumb. Yeah,
I love that
in a great dumb way. In
a great way. Oh, for sure. Yeah, in a great dumb way. Yeah.
Okay. I feel a couple questions, but yeah, does it feel like that's what it's going for? It just wants to unlock every sort of dumb idea you have and still make it fun.
Yes, and actually, what you're seeing now on the B-roll is a great example of that. There are these new things which we kind of saw in the trailers, but this went into more detail. It's called these zonai devices. One of them, maybe my favorite one, is the rocket here. What are they doing in this B-roll? I actually haven't seen this B-roll yet. they've pulled out this rocket. And that is one of many zonai devices. There's wheels, there's flame emitters, there's like hot air balloons, there's God, what else, Jeff? What else do we see? Oh, that's cool.
Yes,
okay,
attached to the shield and just used as a rocket.
Yep. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so all these like little capsule toy things are zonai devices. Yeah, there are fans. You're going to see in some footage that Bakalar shot in a bit of me basically nuts and bolting my way into traveling between these islands with a just custom thing that I made and tried out. Look, they just fused meat to an arrow, shot the arrow, and that distracted the guys with the meat. That does seem to be the hook of this game, is being able to figure out your own way from point A to point B, or how to defeat groups of enemies. The zonai stuff was really cool. There is a material called zonite that you can earn, and that is kind of a universal currency. So let's say you're trying to build something and you don't have the exact parts for it. You can basically funnel in your zonite to fill in for the parts you don't have, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, like you basically spend that currency and like create that set amount of objects, right? Like you have that's how you have access to them.
Okay, so it's like it's always going to be feeding you. It's like they want you to feel like you could be creative at any moment and don't want you to feel like you're running out of resources, basically, is what that is.
Yeah, so if you don't have the exact hot air balloon you need, it's like, all right, funnel some zonite in here, and then you could build this wacky thing you're looking at now.
I think that's cool. What they like. We sort of said this maybe on one of the podcasts, but I really do think like they had seen the endless amount of content that people were making from Breath of the Wild, and was basically like, all right, well, what's the smartest way to give Link this sort of sandbox and really like make it ultra efficient, right? And I think that's what they went for. They were like, all right, well, people are gonna do what they're gonna do, let's arm people with a really useful set of tools that will streamline the entire process and just allow for that much more chaos. I just think that's to me like that is the theme of this game, where they're just like, all right, we're gonna allow for every crazy little thing that someone thought of for the first time around, but now ramp that up to 1,000. And that's sort of the vibe from this game.
Look at like media molecules games, between Little Big Planet and Dreams, where like you can create amazing things in those games, and like a tiny percentage of creators have really utilized those systems, but they're so tutorial heavy and kind of bogged down with all these things you have to remember and controls and everything, that I think the large amount of people playing those was kind of turned off from the creation. Here, I know it's a very different thing, but I didn't feel like there was it all felt very efficient, very easily explained. Things just kind of worked the way you wanted them to.
Yeah,
for instance, that's the big thing I attached a bunch of shit. You'll see in footage in a bit here of me making this flying machine, and I attached all this shit to a block. And then to start it, I just swung my sword at like one thing, or I grabbed a control stick, and they all activate at the same time. It all just kind of works. Like, we didn't get to see the actual tutorial part. Like, remember in Breath of the Wild, the Great Plateau, you had individual shrines for each. Like, here's the magnet, here's the freezing, right, and it would like teach you each one of those pretty elegantly, pretty quickly. I don't know how it teaches you them in this, but I can't imagine it's going to be this long tutorial process at the very beginning. They seem to just put this together very elegantly in a way that makes sense.
I think that's what made Breath of the Wild work so well, really. That's the fundamental thing, is like, when you look at the world, if you have an idea, it probably is going to work that way. Like, hey, like, just chop down that tree and turn that into a bridge. That doesn't work in most games, but it did work in Breath of the Wild. It's like, okay, they are sort of getting at they're like resetting expectations and saying, what if games did work the way you expected them to work if this was your first game ever? And it's like, you look at this pocket full of stuff. It's like, well, you have that thing can catch on fire. Why can't you use that? And so, well, now you can. And it works exactly the way you expect it to work. And that's going to go, they're going to take that to extremes, where it's like every little thing. Like, if you have some, we said this before as well, Scribblenauts idea about, well, if I have this thing, this should do that, right? And then you try to do it. It seems like it's all going to deliver on that. And for me, like, the way you set this up is like, the way that the demo worked is we're here. They set a waypoint. Just trying to get to that waypoint. Do whatever you want. That is okay. Yes, that's exactly what I want. I want a game that's like gives me enough reason to go from point A to point B, and then lets me figure out a bunch of fun ways to do that. And I think that's what they've really delivered here.
Well, it's going to be interesting because, like, I talk about how easy it is and how intuitive it is to build this stuff, but I also, play a lot of video games. I was originally planning on getting this for my dad for his birthday because he loved Breath of the Wild. But after playing this, I kind of do wonder. I think there is a little bit higher a barrier of entry here because, like, you mentioned if this is your first game, it might be difficult. Like, I think about the things my dad struggled with, and it was the things where it's like, oh, you're using magnesis. He couldn't remember, like, okay, I hold in this, and I got to press this and this to move it. How do I rotate it, or how do I lock onto it? Like, he kind of struggled with that, and it is very intuitive for me, who's played games and kind of knows how to read that language, but if this game is really heavy on having to build these flying machines or these contraptions, it requires like a lot of like that kind of object manipulation and placing things the right way and everything that I wonder if it was a small child or my 60-year-old father, I think it might be a little more, there is a higher barrier for entry, but I think for like guys like us or anyone who like played the hell out of Breath of the Wild, I think it should be pretty intuitive.
Yeah, I think nuts and bolts in it is like it's a verb that is very exciting to us because like that's like a whole new layer on top of everything. But that does introduce a lot of new systems and interactions that are probably require you to think in a 3D way that is maybe a little bit intimidating to people who might not be used to a lot of 3D games.
Sure.
I think what I'm curious to see is because you seem to be able to kind of like, MacGyver your way. Sort of, out of any situation or into any situation, right? I'm curious to see like what that does to the overall design, right? Like the design language that can kind of be brute forced, through by building any sort of contraption, right? Like how does that, how will that differ from Breath of the Wild? How will that sort of communication work with as it relates to like the design and the person playing the game? I think for me, seeing all this stuff, you're like, oh, wow, if you can think it, you can kind of do it. And isn't that great? But it's like, all right, well, what does that do in terms of like what the game is instructing and the design of all that? That I'm very curious to see.
Yeah, because it's like it comes down to you have to find your own fun in some circumstances. And a lot of people bristled against that in Breath of the Wild. And it seems like they're doing even more of that here. And I'm like, for me, let's go. Like, let's fucking go. I'm ready for that. I think for a lot of people, they're like, okay, can I just get a little bit of guidance? And I'm like, yeah, I hope you have that. I do. I don't need it, but I hope you get that. Sure.
Okay, I want you to notice what just happened here. So he encountered, in this B-roll, we just saw him get on that block and attach a single rocket to it and then took it here and fell on a thing. Jan, can we cue up the one with me in the giant block and how I did this for the first time? Because
we got a little bit of
quite
footage.
Different than, let's
see, yours is a little bit more elaborate.
Okay. Yeah, that's mine. So they did one rocket. I did, what do we got? 5 there. We got a hot air balloon. We got a flame emitter. Let's see.
I forgot about the flame emitter.
Yeah, so we put the balloon there. I guess the balloon already comes with a flame emitter for the hot air balloon. And so I decided to put a flamethrower on the front of my vehicle here to intimidate any would-be enemies.
Sure, clear the path.
I did not realize you could do this with a single rocket, so this will be overkill, what you see here. 5 on the
you
back,
needed all of them,
in the middle.
I think. Yeah,
I like to be safe.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
That's.
Look at that. That's a control stick. So what I'm putting there is just that you can control it. Because the way they did it in the B-roll is that rocket just took them up. I'm going to have control over this fucking thing. And so you see all these things are attached to this. And I was talking earlier about how like, I think I hit one of them with the sword or I grab the control stick and that activates everything attached to that object. So these fans too. So like I'm really making sure.
You got fans too. A lot of redundancy here.
Sure. A lot of just fail safe. I like to make sure we're airborne. Yeah.
Look, would you want to be on a plane that has 1 engine or 4?
I would like to be on one that has 4. Fair enough.
There you go.
You feel a lot better. It's a short flight, but still can't be too. You're
going to go to the control stick and the fan's going to turn on and suck you right into the turbine.
That's right. Yes. Oh, now I think I'm putting bat wings on the side. These are wings.
Just like a cosmetic sort of thing.
Yeah. Right? Oh, right. Then it turns into that like silly putty.
Yeah,
for some reason,
holding wings to it.
There's a lot of goop.
Yeah, goopy game.
I did not have to do this, but we technically have wings on the side of this thing now. I think we might be good to go.
All right, you got the thumbs up from the coach.
And then I just grab this.
What we've been training for.
Flames down.
This game's gonna rule. This is gonna be so much fun. Yeah, that's incredible.
I'm flying it like an R-wing.
Can you like make it go down?
I could if I wanted to. Look at this. So I bypassed on the B-roll. You saw him drop at that first one. I passed that whole island here. Ran out of battery power, but we've still got momentum going here. Apparently, you can upgrade links like battery power, like you know how you could upgrade stamina or whatever in Breath of the Wild. I think there's going to be a way that you can upgrade the overall battery level. It's not a per device thing, to my understanding.
Yeah, from what I understand, like those little batteries represent any of like the mechanical elements. What is it called? Zonai.
Zonai. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that like it doesn't matter what you're using. That's it.
Just take a little break and then let the flames roar.
Yes. And it recharges
further into space.
Able to sit on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now you're going to dock it safely? No, you're just going to abandon it. All right. Awesome.
Oh, and I think we see it crash here. I think somebody said, where do their
Oh, that's
go?
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
That might be in the other video.
Okay.
We can show another one while we're on this. Is this the...
Yeah, this is the second one.
Different one. Okay, cool. This is one. Yeah, so I'm making like a glider here. I love the fans, it turns out.
I mean, okay, so we're seeing you building here. How easy is it?
It is. If you can do like the magnesis stuff in the first one, where like it's the exact same controls, basically. It's like you're using the D-pad to move things up, forward and back. You're rotating things. It's not really that hard, and I think you're going to get used to it pretty quick. And yeah, if you struggle with the controls, like I mentioned my dad, it might be hard. But if you're a kid that like can understand these controls and do it easily.
I mean, if you played Fortnite with building, right? Like it's
exactly.
Easy.
So yeah, and I think if I were a kid playing this, my mind would be going crazy with all the fucking things you can do. Like this is, if you can think it, you can do it. Like the answer, I think they described it as like the yes and video game, where it's just like, oh yeah, that thing I want to do. Yep, that works, and you can do this, and that works. And I can't say there was really anything I encountered or an idea I had during my time with it that didn't just work the way I wanted it to or better. Like, look at this stupid thing I made. It was a double-decker hang glider, hot air balloon, like fan boat, and I'm controlling it.
And you have this world that is like worthy of this sort of thing, right? Where it's like, I love Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. I really do. But it was smaller platforming levels, and they were there. It goes. There it goes. Bye. This is like a big open world that you need to want to explore, and so having the ability to build these things and actually get around and be like, okay, I'm gonna get over there. What do I have in front of me? What can I use? That's exactly what I want.
Yeah, and at the end of that clip, you might have noticed that thing that looks like a big gumball machine. And that is like, it's like a zonai device dispenser. And so let's say I don't know if it comes out when you kill things or if it's in treasure chests, but you'll occasionally get like, unformed zonai. I forget what it was called, but it's like, let's say you get it capsules or whatever. You bring it to a gumball machine and you put these items in there, and like you put in one thing and like 5 or 6 random zonai things come out like a capsule machine. It's like, ooh, I got 2 rockets. I got a fan. I got a couple wheels. And it's like, okay, what can I build with this?
Couple things. Performance. How did it run?
I was wondering about that, and I was pleasantly surprised that it seemed to be running smoothly the entire time I played. But keep in mind that, like with Breath of the Wild, 6 years ago, it was in specific areas, like if you go to Kakariko Village, where it's a very dense, a lot of characters, there's rain, and that would really tank the frame rate really bad. I mean, who knows? This could have been a specific area that never has any performance issues. Maybe the sky has less issues. We don't know. All I can say is what I played, I did not run into any issues, and I was pleasantly surprised at how it ran.
When you craft or when you fuse a weapon and you like add another thing to it, what is the durability like at that point? Do they seem more durable when you put a big ball, spiky ball on your sword or whatever?
I don't know if they just kind of ratcheted all that stuff up across the board, because Jeff, remind me if I'm forgetting, but like I don't remember a lot of weapons breaking. I also don't remember doing a ton of combat.
Okay.
So
I'm 95% sure there's absolutely degradation for sure.
Yeah, they said there's
we didn't
still
see the constant breaking, basically.
I think, and I'll put on top of that, I'm fairly sure that someone had said to us that like sometimes certain things can extend the life of a weapon due to a fusing.
Yes, that's what they implied that in the video, but they didn't like straight out and come out and say
I'm pretty
like
sure
that's
someone said that to us.
Was
Okay.
there
Pretty
something?
sure.
Did we like infuse a weapon with zonai or something, Jeff? Wasn't there something where we made like we infused a weapon and it was like glowing and it was much more durable?
You got plus 5% to Batman infusion. Oh wait, no, that's Suicide Squad. My bad.
I don't remember that specifically, but it's What did you like one of those rocket things or no?
I thought I had something that I fused with the sword, and I remember it glowing, and I think we saw it in the B-roll as well at some point. I can't say to any degree as far as the degradation. So I do think it's there. I mean, and I do think that stuff will extend the life, but I don't know a lot about that right now.
There were definitely rules about like what's an object in the world and what isn't, right? Do you remember that where where you tried to do something and the game wouldn't allow it simply because there was a difference between like an actual object in the game as opposed to a world piece, if you will?
I think I tried to attach a rocket to a tree or something that wasn't really an object, and they were like, no, it has to be an object,
Which makes sense for sure.
That does make sense.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that time rewind thing. I think there is a bit of like not like a learning curve, but like that stuff is gonna be fun to play with because
you're gonna have to think about it laterally, right? You're gonna have to like it's gonna take time to be like, wait, how can I use this in a way that's more creative than just like roll a ball back up a hill? But I think all that stuff's gonna happen pretty quickly, naturally, as you're playing the game for dozens of hours, right?
Sure, because there does seem to be like kind of fun rules about what you can actually do with that and what else can react with things that are affected by something that's being rewound. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, like there are things I'm looking forward to playing with. Things like, can I attach a rocket to a bokoblin? Could there be a sleeping bokoblin at a camp and I attach a rocket to him and send him into space? I don't know that yet. Like, I want to test all these things, and I'm sure there are going to be some things that don't work, like when I try to attach a rocket to a tree or whatever. But I want to poke around this world and see.
Did you guys see any dungeons? Were there any Zelda dungeons in your playthrough?
Nothing that I would consider a dungeon. It was a pretty limited slice of what we were able to explore.
Right. Again, you guys sound like you were mostly up in the Sky Islands, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you look at those recent trailers and like that final pre-launch trailer, and it definitely looked like they were implying like, look at this big area or temple looking thing. Like, I feel like there's going to be dungeons, but I can't say I've seen them or played them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there'll be something akin to dungeons, but again, that's just us guessing. Let's see, what else did I wanted to ask? I had some other questions about this stuff. I mean, in general, does it feel pretty much? Oh, that's right. Magnesis and time stop, all that stuff from the last game. Is that stuff? Did it seem like it's going to be in there? Is there like spots in the UI where it's like, oh, you're going to unlock more stuff and you'll get those abilities, or do you guys think those things are only going to be in Breath of the Wild and then only these abilities are going to be here?
I feel like something like Magnesis is pretty much replaced with Ultra Hand. Ultra Hand is just kind of how you move things around and attach it. Like, that basically seems like Magnesis. You can just do it with all these zonai devices and everything. I did not see anything called Stasis, but that might be a thing too, where like recall, if you don't trigger the actual recall motion, can you just have something stay there like Stasis and build up that kinetic energy or whatever? Like, I didn't try that out. What else? I didn't see the freeze thing. Yeah, Jeff, is there anything? I'm trying to remember.
It does seem like those have been replaced, I think. It does. That's the way I'm leaning towards. So.
I would imagine. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think going from the first one to this one, I think I'm interested to see someone trying to go back after they play this one, just because of like what will kind of be missing from the whole thing, which I think is an interesting sort of angle. But yeah, it does seem like the Ultra Hand stuff does kind of indirectly replace a good amount of the abilities from the first one, for sure.
I'll say something as well. We wondered about shrines and whether that was going to be a big part.
Yeah,
the 120 shrines from Breath of the Wild. They didn't let us go into a shrine in this, but there was a part where on a Sky Island there was this little puzzle where it's like I was able to rotate this big device around with like the Ultra Hand or some control panel, and I had to bring this glowy green rock over to this area. And once I did this puzzle, which was kind of a whole puzzle in itself, I was like attaching rockets to the rock, trying to send it over. I was doing all sorts of different ways to try to transport it. Then the shrine appeared. So there was a shrine that appeared after I did a puzzle. So like, I don't know if every one of them is going to have a puzzle or a mini puzzle in the overworld that you do, but it wasn't like I just walked up and hit a button. It was like I had to do a thing and then a shrine appeared. So,
and this was in one of the Sky Islands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I wonder if it's like these Sky Islands are kind of the new shrine sort of thing, where it's like you're going to go up to a bunch of these and they're going to have a bunch of puzzles on them, but it's going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit more open. But that's going to be sort of like where they're doing a lot of the stuff they would have been doing in shrines, and then who knows what's going on inside that shrine that popped up. Maybe there's just treasure down there. Maybe there's even more to the puzzles down there. I mean, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, and one of the abilities we talked about or that we haven't talked about yet, is that ascend ability, which is pretty cool. Where it's like, I had to think differently because like there's no analog to that in Breath of the Wild, where it's like I wasn't ever thinking about what's above me, but in this it was like, oh right, I can just like warp up and then like swim through cave ceilings and stuff like that, and you can see there, you see how he's like perched there, and it says A exit. So you get a moment when you're up there where you can kind of like pause and survey the situation and decide if you want to like just go back down or if you want to pop out, So that seems like that's going to be a pretty fun one as well.
Yeah, that is one I'm like most curious to see its limitations, because when we saw the video, it's like, okay, you're going to be able to go through like skinny floors, and they're like, no, you can go through an entire mountain. I'm like, wait, what? Okay, so yeah, I'm very curious.
It's weird.
Like, yeah, it seems weird, but it's I think their whole idea is like they want to build out this world, give you a ton of stuff to find, and then give you all the tools to pretty easily get from one place to the other, regardless of what you're doing. It's like if you have that, like people talk about like climbing in the rain in Breath of the Wild, that's just not going to be a thing anymore, because you could just find the right place to do ascend, and you'll go right up, and you'll be on top of wherever you want to be in no time.
Real quick before we go on, Jan, can you go back to that last image? I want to talk about that. That is a zonai device called the portable pot. So you can basically just like have a portable, you can cook, so you don't have to like warp someplace and go to a stable or
like
something.
A single use
thing,
yeah,
just make a little zonai pot on your fucking sky glider thing or whatever you make.
Okay.
That'll be
all
handy.
right. So they got a lot of. Here's just some new recipes.
Yeah,
meat and seafood fry. Man, I'm hungry. That looks good.
Mm-hmm.
So then how much did feel familiar? Did you get anything like, oh yeah, that from Breath of the Wild? Was there much of that, or does this feel like a full-blown sequel? Like, where are you at? Where are you landing on that spectrum?
I mean, moving around, controlling Link, the hang glider or the paraglider, all that stuff, that feels exactly like Breath of the Wild. The combat to me felt just like Breath of the Wild. There are different possibilities, definitely, with the way, you're fusing your swords and shields and stuff like that. So there are different possibilities, but the moment-to-moment swinging your sword, blocking, strafing, dodging, like that feels exactly like Breath of the Wild. I'll say visually, just in terms of art style and everything, you've seen the trailers. I mean, it looks like Breath of the Wild. My big question, though, is the stuff that we didn't get to see, that stuff down below. How similar is it to the old map? Like, what is the progression through the game? I have to assume it's going to be extremely open the way the previous one was, but whereas Breath of the Wild had the 4 kind of dungeons you could do before you face Ganon, is this going to be similar? Are we going to have more dungeons, less shrines, but more involved shrines? Like, those are the questions that I don't know the answers to right now. Like I said, they didn't let us into the shrine, so I don't know if they're all going to be 120 similar looking little mini puzzles like it was in Breath of the Wild, or something bigger. Those are my big questions right now. I'm very excited because, I mean, the stuff that we have seen that has moved it forward has been very substantial. All the fusing, all the zonai device stuff, like that is far beyond kind of what I expected. I expected this to feel more like Breath of the Wild. And just by pushing hard into those systems, I think this is going to be a very different experience.
Yeah, I think it is the game, once again, I didn't know that I wanted them to make, but now that I see it, it's like, oh my God, this is exactly what I wanted, and they figured it out again. It's how I felt about Breath of the Wild, and now seeing this, it's like, they might be doing it again. I don't think it's going to have the exact same impact, but it doesn't need to. Breath of the Wild already did that. This can just build on that, and it seems like it's going to.
I mean, Majora wasn't Ocarina. It didn't have the same impact Ocarina did, but it did its own thing, and people will remember it fondly because of that. I think this might be a similar deal.
Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Bakalar?
No, I think, I really fell in love with Breath of the Wild, and I fell in real hard and just, found myself wanting to go back to it for very specific reasons. And like those reasons in this one are not there, right? Like there's new reasons. And I think that's an exciting thing to have sort of being, presented to you, the fact that like, I'm excited to build in this game for sure. Where, exploring where all that goes, we'll see. But it's cool to have like a new thing here, and I think that was the big holdout. Obviously, we knew what it was, but the scene in action is super convincing.
It is interesting because a lot of times when you have limited time with a demo of a game you're excited for, you are trying to see as much as you can before your time's up. And here we knew we had limited time and a certain like area that we could play within. And I just found myself like I did a little bit of exploring, like, oh, what's in this cave? What's up here? But then the second that I was presented with like, okay, I need to go up there, I got so fixated on just like, okay, what do I have to play with? How can I do this? Like, how do I build this thing? And I was just transfixed by this, like attaching stuff and making this stupid flying machine and everything. And like, I kind of just got lost in it. And I wasn't doing that. Just like, I got to see everything. What's over there? I got to see everything and take all my notes or whatever. I was just like, this is so fun to make my little device here. And if a lot of this game is built around this, I think the creativity people are going to have on display. Like, this is made for clips to be shared on social media. Like, oh my God, this person got to the castle at the end this way, or this person, look at this device, this crazy vehicle that no one even like thought was possible. Like, there's going to be a lot of that in this game. Yeah,
I think it's going to take over TikTok. It'll be YouTube Shorts and Twitter and all that stuff is going to be everywhere. So I'm looking forward to it. This game's out May 12th, right? Man, I think it's right. And that's coming up fast. So we'll have it in our hands in no time. And I can't wait. Dan, Jeff, thank you guys so much for taking us through this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Till next time, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye.